No.
I blink in bemusement. Sometimes there's like a bell noise, and I wonder if that has something to do with the affection levels. I feel like I read it does, but maybe I also didn't read that. I really don't remember. I blink in bemusement at the finality of his words. He rarely has the nerves to be so bold.
Swinging your sword will only give them another option to pull you down with. I've heard stories. Please listen, Kika. Run away with me. We can make it.
I look over at the monsters who are now clambering over the bridges towards us faster, and then back at Lou, who locks eyes with me without a whisper of doubt. It's clear he won't let me throw myself at the threat.
All right. Since you're better informed on how to handle this, then, I will follow your lead.
Relief washes over Lou's face before it hardens again with determination.
We should go.
I nod and turn to the path ahead, crawling with monsters. We sprint down the bridges together into the fray of contorting claws. I duck below Nyx's grasping hands and jump over another reaching pair at the base of the bridge. I hear a small noise from Lou. With trepidation but still running at top speed, I whip back to look at him. Lou is fine. He simply shakes his head and motions for me to continue.
I'm okay. Keep moving.
Right, if I don't keep moving, then I'll only be getting in the way. However, I reach my hand back for him to take. Being distracted by thoughts of Lou's stumbling will bring us both down. This can help. Seeing my hand waiting ahead, past those of the monsters, encourages Lou even further. He pushes his way through and grabs hold. I grip him tightly and begin to run again. We manage to clear the worst swarm of Nixie on the bridges. I take a moment to savor fresh air as I slow my mad pace. Lou is gasping for breath, however he's got an eager grin on his face. The Nixie did not follow us, but they are much too near for comfort. We meet eyes and both continue to run to put those creatures far behind us, still hand in hand. We start rushing across the bridges with renewed vigor and don't stop until the wet sounds of the crooked monsters are long behind us. I take advantage of the break to look around with more carefulness. It is nothing but the essence of Sinnlos, bridges, fog, and the lake itself. I can see neither the interloping guide's light nor the shore. We are completely and utterly lost in this labyrinth of ever-changing bridges. The atmosphere surrounding this place is even more oppressive and dense in the dark. Now that I've been forced to take in our situation, I am engulfed by the sheer emptiness of it all. The silence is deafening. My thoughts turn to Lou. This is what he had to deal with before we happened to find each other. I felt so sure in my need to protect him, the boy on the brink of death curled up in a helpless ball. I feel the cold sting of regret upon realizing that Lou is back in this situation again thanks to my choices. I turn to assess him. He's bent forward over his knees, panting erratically as he tries to catch his breath. He's completely and utterly exhausted. Yet, when he catches my gaze, he looks up to me to smile at me. I jerk my head away. I'm wildly uncomfortable that Lou is much more willing to smile now than ever before. I have no idea how he could be so happy over this. I don't even want to consider that he's acting this way for my weak sake. I open my mouth to speak, but before I can put forth one word...
I think we're safe right now.
I'm struck, baffled by his choice of words given where we are. Sinnlos is the Nixie's territory. They felt inescapable. However, this lake is vast, and the Nixie are not omnipresent nor omniscient. Lou catches me looking for any
I
signs.
noticed that Nixie can't be everywhere in this maze. It's huge. Now that we're away from them, we just have to be quiet.
So there aren't like thousands underneath the water?
Of course.
I feel a surge of hope well up in my chest.
We should take this opportunity to fully rest. Then we can progress somewhat slowly for a time. Capturing the attention of those beasts with loud steps is something we must avoid.
Lou nods. The two of us stand quietly together, regaining our strength for the path ahead. After a short period of time, we start to make our way across the bridges as cautiously as possible. He starts to move ahead of me. I follow behind closely. Lou stares out at the lake with a listless expression, and he seems entirely entranced within his own mind. His expression is dark. His thoughts are almost oozing gloom. I make no attempts to interrupt, allowing him to process his thoughts on his own. Unfortunately, his true concerns are still a mystery. I feel powerless to help.
What are the odds the two of us would end up getting left behind by the guide again?
He chuckles and a nervous smile of my own forms at the sheer irony of it.
I cannot say. It isn't exactly the same, however. This time, it was you who chose to be with me.
How could I not? There isn't anything else in this lake that's worth standing by.
The affection in his tone causes me to smile more honestly. We continue on the near-identical pathways together. After his short comment before, Lou has stopped speaking again. We're rather aimless, but there is little sense of panic between us. Somehow, the complete isolation makes it feel as though there are no threats. There is only us in a never-ending void. I force myself to shake off such thoughts. I need to remain focused. The end will come whether we arrive at it or not. A little later down the path, Lou suddenly seems to escape the snare of his mind once more. He gives me an inquisitive glance.
So are you still curious about me? I wouldn't mind sharing more, if you'd like. I can't give specifics, but if that's fine, then...
Why can't you give specifics? Of course, please do. He grins at me. However, his face quickly falls. He has to look away as he prepares to open up.
I was the black sheep of my village. I wasn't ever able to accomplish anything, and it felt like I never belonged. I couldn't go anywhere else. It wasn't possible for someone like me. I didn't exactly want to leave, though. I only wanted to feel I was worthwhile, that I was wanted, needed. I tried again and again to be that to someone, but it was pointless.
He chuckles bitterly.
Like myself.
I pointedly give him a frown. He ducks his head further.
You probably already know that much about me by this point, huh? I'll move on. During one of my attempts to be of any use, I made some mistakes. I got caught by people who threatened my village. I didn't have the nerve to stand up to them. I put everyone I knew at risk. I had a chance to make up for what I did, but I didn't take it. And now this is where I am.
His face falls to the depths of despair.
The worst part is, the longer I'm here, with you, the less I regret it. No matter what happens to them or me, I wouldn't ever want to change my decision to go with you. I'm such a selfish coward. At least I'm embracing that now.
Doesn't make you a selfish coward for wanting to live, you numbnuts. After 1 week self-derisive laugh, he sighs in defeat. Oh, so tired. I want to help Lou. I wish he could see his own worth. However, my mind is distracted. Something in his story strikes me. When we first found him, he was heading in the opposite direction of us. He must have started from the other shore. There's only one village located around that direction.
Lou, are you from Hema? That's where I am heading. It's currently under siege, and I've been asked to assist in pushing the Brigadiers back.
He wordlessly stares at me. His expression is clouded with unreadable emotion. After a moment, he turns to the ground and murmurs softly.
No specifics. I'm sorry.
Why not? We could die out here, and you're like, no specifics. He tries to sound lighthearted, but it's clear that he's shaken. I try to offer him a sympathetic smile.
I understand. The people there will be all right. I will make sure of it.
That's good.
Lou acts as though he chose to crow Sinnlos only for his own sense of self. However, I silently wonder if there's more to it than that. Was he crossing to find help on the other side? Despite my curiosity, I couldn't ask him to elaborate. It's clearly a difficult topic for him, and I already agreed to not get specifics out of this. I reach over to him and gently stroke his back, from the nape of his neck slowly down his spine. He shivers at my touch, though it is in no way from discomfort. I caress him, and he allows me to. We walk together at a steady pace, that irrational sense of peace pervading for a while. Something catches the edge of my eyes, and I gasp quietly. There is a silhouette of something ahead. Is that land? The other shore? I have a difficult time believing what I'm seeing.
You were going the right way.
I can hear the astonishment in his voice as well. He goes from complete shock to confident.
We can make it.
I nod eagerly. We increase our pace frenetically while doing all we can to remain as quiet as possible. Lou remains ahead a comfortable distance in front of me. We take a few turns here and there and keep running down a single bridge for a time, never allowing our eyes to leave the small sign of land for too long. The silhouette ahead finally comes into full view. I feel my heart pound with excitement. Even so, I refuse to allow that feeling to let me lower my guard. I need to remain focused. We could so easily fall at the final step. Yet, nothing threatens us. And then we miraculously arrive at the dock. The two of us immediately rush off the bridges onto the safety of solid land. Not really safe though, is it? Before I can fully register what happened, I can hear the sound of Lou's airy, overjoyed laughter.
We made it! We actually made it!
Pools of tears form in my eyes and I allow myself to relish the joy of the moment. I'm so glad we made it in one piece. This doesn't seem real, but instead some wild waking fantasy. As the rush of adrenaline escapes my body, I realize that we are alone. Did they make it before us and leave, or...
The guide goes slow.
I breathe deeply and calm myself. Lou is correct. They will make it to shore soon enough. I have to believe that. I manage to feel settled again. This lake has made me start to count on the worst-case scenarios. Lou smiles contentedly at my calmness. When I catch his eye, he turns away bashfully.
Honestly, the further we went, the more it felt like I remembered where I was when I started. I never mentioned it because I didn't want to get your hopes up, but it worked.
I thought the bridges always changed or something. I don't know, I'm confused. I widen my eyes at his words. A surge of emotion zaps through my chest.
That's incredible. You saved us.
Lou awkwardly half laughs and rubs his arm.
You're the one who saved us. I just assisted a little bit.
Ooh, I didn't mean to do that. My bad. I beam at him. His response doesn't surprise me at all. I feel quite pleased that he was able to admit that he helped at all. I wrap my arms around his neck and gently embrace him. He readily eases into the hug as though he was waiting for it. Lou wraps his arms around my back and presses his face into the crook of my shoulder while murmuring softly to me.
I'm so grateful it was this night.
The two of us separate, though we still stand close. He sighs comfortably, then his face cocks into a somewhat playful grin.
You know, everything that's happened to me before this point, well, that's water under the bridge.
I give him the most unimpressed look I can manage. I'll never understand how he is content joking about this nightmarish lake. Despite that, I can't help the tiny smile that whispers across my lips because that is so purely him. Lou snickers. Even though I still feel there is nothing about this place to jest over, I can't bring myself to staunch his good mood after everything we've been through these past days. He deserves to be happy and I will continue to protect that.
We shouldn't stay here. We don't have any light and those monsters could notice us.
Lou's face immediately falls.
So this is goodbye. You're going to Hammer. I'm not.
All of my thoughts crash around me. I'd forgotten a moment that we did not have the same goals. I formed a view of the future where the two of us would stay together after all of this was over. He looks into my eyes with a strange, softened sorrow. I can't place what it is, but something about it causes a knot in my chest. I almost choke on my words.
Where will you go then? If you don't mind telling me.
He simply looks away. I wait for a moment, and when he doesn't continue, I do.
If you have nowhere in mind, you should come with me. Where I'm going won't be safe yet. However, it will be soon, and I will defend you until it is.
He bites his lip, though finally is able to face me.
I'd like to. More than you know. But I can't. I need you to trust me when I say that if I did go, it wouldn't make anything better. I'm so sorry.
He looks the same as when I first met him, holding himself together because if he doesn't, he might fall apart. But now something within him is different. It's stronger than the utter despair of failure from when we first met. It's solid, unwavering, and accepting.
You don't have to come. I understand. Still, I'd like to see you again.
It makes a small noise, something between a whimper and a grunt. Lou nods.
I want that too. When you have the chance, come back here.
I'm just gonna wait on the shore
I'll wait
forever.
for you. I promise.
I blink in surprise.
What? Lou, that doesn't make any sense.
He simply smiles. I suddenly get an urge to hold him.
Maybe it doesn't, but that's the only option we have. No matter how much I hate this shore, it's close enough.
Is
and
Lou
far
dead?
enough.
Is that what this is? Is he dead? I stare at him intensely, trying to understand what's going on in his head. He weakly looks up at me and waves.
Goodbye, Kika.
In a blink, he's gone. I managed to just catch a glimpse of him dashing off into the darkness of the forest.
Wait!
I try in vain to call for him until my voice goes hoarse. He either doesn't hear me or doesn't listen. Lou completely disappears into the night. I stand there, stunned. I quickly shake off the shock and step into the forest. It's no use. He's not on the pathway and there's no trace of where he could be. He's gone. I realize a tear is falling down my cheek. I wipe off the errant tear and ball my hands into fists. I vow to myself that no matter what happens, I will return to this lake for him. I have to find him. I have to. This can't be the last time. Lou, please wait for me. I hurried to Hema as quickly as I could. I already failed to help another during my journey. I could not afford to fail the villagers. They were grateful to see me, for it was a desperate situation indeed. The urgency meant that my mind was occupied with other matters. I worked tirelessly to aid Hema's own guards in forcing back the brigaders. But during the moments of calm and when the sun went down, I would remember the lake. The villagers were alarmed when I arrived on my own, but it did not take them long to guess what must have happened to Bemele. Having to recount the terrible story was almost more than I could endure. Yet I know it will be even worse when I must tell my fellow guards back home. They deserve to hear the truth from me, regardless of how I feel. After putting Sinnlos behind her, Margaret explained where she was originally from, though she had no plans of returning. Despite leaving everything she knew, Margaret boldly looks towards the future. I respect her for her bravery, and I hope for nothing more than the best. I have not heard nor seen the guide since then. He will remain obscured in that realm of fog and fear, a mysterious light off in the distance that is ever out of reach of the real world. Then, once the situation was stable enough for me to take some time for myself, went back to the shore. I arrive on the shore of Sinnlos at dawn. It's late enough that only the lonely dock remains, a small monument to the horrifying maze that haunts the nights of this lake. I weave my way through the thick fog and jagged roots. I have little idea of what I'm supposed to do since Lou ran off before making any actual plans. I wander around searching for the boy. I peer across trees and rocks, but there's no trace of him to be found.
Kika.
Oh, what up, dude? I hear my name being called in the distance. My heart jumps. I recognize that voice. It's the icy tone of Sinnlos' only guide. I turn to see him walking towards me. It is expected that he's here. Still, this is far from the reunion I am striving for. I have difficulty not being somewhat bitter. He appraises me quietly before humming in understanding.
You came back for him.
My defenses shoot up.
How do you know about that?
His eyes bore deeply into mine and I feel a chill down my spine.
Lou is dead. He
What?
was executed.
What?
All the air is sucked from my body. The guide offers no further explanation and it hits me hard.
No, that can't be. You have to be wrong.
His face is scrunched up in what could possibly be sorrow as he begins to speak.
It wasn't possible for Lou to escape from what he had done. His fate was sealed. No one could save him.
He releases a long breath before he continues.
That is why he told me everything, in case he couldn't be here himself. Lou did wait for you. He stayed for as long as he could. His death was not peaceful. However, it was proud.
Time seems to nearly stop as I sit beside myself with a lurching pit in my stomach. Lou was here with me in what feels like only a moment ago, and now... The guide sighs melancholically.
It all feels so pointless. Still, you gave Lou something he never had. and it seems he gave you something in return. Perhaps that does have worth.
My mind is racing and my heart pounds painfully in my chest. I have difficulty believing he actually thinks that is true. It does seem as though he would like to, at the very least. I want to believe it as well. Slowly, I reach into my pocket and gently stroke the shell Lou gave me. Without another word, the guide walks off into the distance. I don't make any attempt to follow him. I fully take out the shell to look at it. Somehow, I didn't want him to see. It was between just the two of us. I stare at the beautiful gift, grasping it in my hands. I then turn my eyes to look out at the lake. Hot tears pool in my eyes and start to fall down my cheeks. The things he said, the way he was so willing to leave everyone behind, why he seemed so prepared to let himself die, it all became so much clearer in an instant. It truly was hopeless from the start. I squeeze my eyes shut tight and imagine his face, tracing every line, every expression, and engraving it into my memory. It's not letting me go forward. I just wanted to say that. Alright, I think it froze for some reason. Hey, Lou, I'll always remember you. I won't allow what you've done to be for nothing, I promise. I sit there for I couldn't say how long, drinking in the internal image of Lou while vowing to never allow him to leave my thoughts. Then I open my eyes and leave this shore behind. That's his actual ending? He just dies? I still find it difficult to accept Lou's cruel death. I have yet to remove the shell from my pouch. Carrying it gives me at least some comfort. That helps me continue on despite the pain. And I will not stop trying. I will still fight to protect others. Through it all, Lou will stay with me. He won't simply fade into the mist. I choose to believe that in this way his soul can find peace. Why does that say dark? Let me look at the achievement. Wait, I didn't mean to do. Okay, dark. Escaped the void and returned to light. So that's just like finishing it, I guess. Alright, we will go and get some more endings, I think. Let me go and look. Guides. Lake of Voices achievement guide, I guess. That's probably it, right? It seems like this one did lose go through first. So this time we will go for Margaret. You're quite informed, Margaret.
It's been years since the time of Garvin the Exemplar. It's impressive you knew.
Margaret smiles, lifting her chin into the air. The over-exaggerated action is somehow pleasant rather than belittling. She's so much happier than I anticipated.
Yes, I do like to stay informed. And you knew too. Good. This lake shouldn't be allowed to swallow even history itself.
My town, the one where I was born at least, was also Garvin's hometown. I was very young when he passed. The entire village went into mourning. People broke down crying in the streets. I'll never forget it. He meant much to everyone who knew him.
Oh, I have no such connections. I merely read about it.
She pauses, seeming to scan the air in front of her for something to say.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Alright.
It's all right. Thank you.
My town may have taken pride in Garvin the Exemplar and what he achieved, but we weren't the ones who lost the most. That would be his family. Can we skip? We can skip. I believe we should go. Oh, I admire her resilience, apparently. It's comforting to know everyone here is us. Why would we do this? Alright. I feel Bemele start as I reciprocate his touch, but just as quickly a smile replaces his shock. The moment is pleasant, a small balm against a large burn. I harden my expression and Bemele follows suit. He moves his free arm down. I think we can... Yeah. In spite of myself, I grip Bemele tighter. Only very short bits are going to be different in this one. The current format has been... Can we skip? Yeah, we skip. We wait the timer, apparently. Encourage her to keep going. Do nothing. Okay, I can't do it, blah blah blah. Margaret and Bemele stare at the man as he leaves. We all watch him drag his little frame down the bridge, quickly fading from sight. We had to let him go. We've only barely been surviving so far, so a lot's going to be different because we don't have Lou with us now. The space the man vanished into is dark and silent. We can see and hear nothing of him, not even his footsteps.
Maybe we should call him back? We can at least give him directions. Tell him what paths we've been taking.
It's not going to make any difference. We can't give directions when the bridges we were on might very well have sunken away.
We shouldn't focus on what might become of him. He has his own path to follow, and we ours. We should focus on what we're doing now.
Of course, it's not really a might, but we might have to get through this somehow, and being weighed down with guilt will only distract us. The guide starts moving again at a quick pace. After a moment's hesitation and one last glance into the truly lifeless fog, we run to catch up to him. We can't skip because we've gone a completely different way than before. Our party hasn't changed. The stranger was never added to it, so it's not as if it makes sense to miss him. But there's a sense of loss all the same. No one even attempts mirth. However, Margaret glances my way with concern on occasion. I keep thinking I should have done more, should have pushed the guide harder to change his mind so it was less dangerous to keep the man around. Something. Anything. But I have to let this go. I'm not going to forget that man. I'll never forget him. But we still need to get through this. I curl my hands into fists, hoping it'll strengthen my resolve. Then I push forward. We turn down a different path and the guide stops. Maybe... Nope.
Not again.
The prowlers wriggle somehow, their skin moving more slowly than it should, sliding across their skeletons. They laugh.
We already lost a lantern and it's only our first day. We can't keep doing this.
Yes, we can't lose a lantern at this point. We're almost to the island.
The guide rummages through his coat with his free hand.
What are you planning?
Bemele's tone is borderline threatening, but the guide ignores him. He pulls out a small pouch, then opens a latch on his lantern.
Wait, are you going to throw that at them? What if the bridge sets on fire?
It will. We're going to run.
So is this how the bridge went on fire in the last one? We just weren't there.
This is insane! These bridges are hellish enough without them also being on fire. And what about the other man? If he's still out there, this could...
He's dead. We're not losing another lantern.
I was just bringing up the recording again. Man, things are like freezing, and it shouldn't be. I'm very confused. He says it with such detached certainty, it's as if he saw it happen himself. No one argues with him. The guide steps closer to the prowlers. We fall into step behind him, staying close to his back. He bends his lantern back down until it is lowered to his outstretched arm. The pouch in his hand is set aflame. With a practiced flick of the wrist, he swings the staff back up. The glass on the lantern snaps closed.
Don't get left behind.
He takes 3 quick steps, then tosses the pouch. The prowlers are back in the water before the pouch even lands. As soon as it does, the fire starts to lick and curl itself around the wood. The guide breaks into a sprint, and so do the rest of us. The blaze grows despite the heavy dampness from the lake. These bridges aren't normal bridges, of course that's true. Nothing here is right. Hopefully they won't collapse with the flames. We stay on the guide's heels, almost too close for comfort. If he stops abruptly, we'll all crash into one another, maybe even fall off the bridge. When the world tilts, I was mid-stride. When I put my foot down, the bridge isn't where it was. It lurches to one side, either because it was weakened or pushed. Bemele and I managed to keep our ground, but Margaret falls to the ground. At least I thought that was what happened. She starts pawing the bridge. My glasses fell off. I can't see. For some reason, that's not voiced. The guide, having regained his balance, presses on. He doesn't even bother to look at her. Bemele and I run to Margaret, scanning the bridge, but there's no sign of her glasses. The flames are growing thicker and closer, the heat life-sucking. Close enough to nip at her heels, I grab Margaret's arm.
Glasses aren't here anymore. We have to go or we'll lose the guide.
Margaret squints up at me, face paler than ever. She nods and stands, and we start after the guide again. As our storm of feet thunder across the boards, a silver slither begins to rise into view just above the edge of the water.
The island.
The island? I squint and suddenly make out the craggy forms of land and earth. I see it. We're almost there. Safety at long last in sight. New energy surges through me. We push ourselves faster, longing to put these godforsaken bridges behind our backs. All at once, the bridge ends, and our entire group rushes ashore. Earth, solid earth, a haven from the water. I catch my breath while still moving even further away from the dark shoreline. I can't believe we actually made it. Even more difficult is the idea that we're only halfway done. When night falls once more, we have to do it all again. A heavy arm falls across my shoulders, and I straighten to see Bemele smiling warily at me.
Good work out there.
It's not the usual commendation of a job well done. There's sadness, perhaps even sympathy in the sentence. It ends flatly. Usually, Bemele's comfort and good nature gives me at least the urge to smile, but right now it feels like a hollow victory. He moves to face Margaret, who is squinting at the surrounding area.
Good work out there.
The statement is more energetic. He's not willing enough to show a lack of confidence in front of her. Margaret smiles slightly.
How are you doing without your glasses?
Oh, I'll manage. I have to, after all. I'm not completely blind, thankfully, so I can muddle my way through.
There isn't anything much to see out on those bridges. As long as you stay away from the edge, you should be as safe as you were before.
That's true. It will be fine.
And then the guide is there. He moves so smoothly that his steps on the soft sand are nearly silent, and his dusky clothes blend with the thinning of the night.
The sun will rise soon. The fire on the bridge is the only reason this island isn't overrun with prowlers right now. However, they could still pose a threat.
Is that why you decided to set the bridges on fire? To make the island safer?
The guide looks at Margaret for what I suddenly realize might be only the second or third time all night.
Setting the bridges alight isn't an uncommon strategy. It has many uses.
He walks away, Margaret frowning at his retreating form. Come. Alright, we will read this and sleep, I guess. They're probably gonna fucking sleep. In the next video, bye!